Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm sorry to rain on your parade. Just a little bit of rain today.
At least it's not snow.
Yes, that's right. So I'm talking about pitfalls and mistakes that you can make on social media. And this is a very important topic to us because we are all knowledge workers and we're care providers. So the important word is care for patients. Some of us also are community figures. And then what's really interesting is that a lot of us are in the imaging field. So a lot of these social media platforms lend themselves towards images. So these principles, I think, are very important in this field particularly. And so what we're going to be talking about today is the professional self-presentation principle, respecting physician-patient boundaries, and protecting confidentiality. And then there are some minor points. The previous speaker mentioned how social media can be addictive. So as knowledge workers, this is important. How can we be selective with our time, and how do we deal with distractions? We're also in the medical field, and we want to think about critical thinking. And we also want to avoid echo chambers. And what I mean by this is being stuck in your bubble. So we talked about bubbles within bubbles or clubs within larger groups. But you also have to be aware that you can get stuck in one particular bubble. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So one of the most important things is having a professional self-presentation. One of the things that you should do, no matter what social media platform you're using, is click on the privacy settings button. Figure out what options you have. Some people don't think about doing that. We have to realize what personal information might be becoming available publicly. Your content, of course, should be accurate, truthful, cited, and think about declaring conflicts of interest as well across these platforms. These are common sense principles that we've discussed already, being respectful, professional, and free of confidential patient information. I'll get into more detail. Why is this important? I'm going to give you some examples where things can go wrong with social media. This is an example of a former Northwestern University student who's suing the hospital and one of its doctors for invasion of privacy after the doctor took pictures of her while she was being treated for being drunk and shared those pictures online. And so she was a model, and so she's got some unflattering pictures now tweeted of her, and so she decided to sue. So this is how you can get in trouble. These are some other common examples that have been highlighted in the media. In Missouri, an obstetrician tweeted, "This patient has been late for all her prenatal visits. Should I show up late for her delivery?" Well, that came across very poorly to both that woman that was late and some of her friends, and they complained, and she was subsequently disciplined by her hospital. In Jackson, Missouri, an administrative employee noted and tweeted a rumor that their hospital stayed open late just to provide an exam to the governor of that state. So remember, it's a violation to disclose that a person has even received care in your facility. And so that employee was fired after that. In Geneva, Wisconsin, 2 nurses took cell phone pictures of a patient's x-ray showing a device lodged in the rectum. It wasn't really providing any sort of educational content, and those nurses were in fact terminated for tweeting that picture. So these mistakes do happen, and I want to make sure you're not one of those people making those mistakes. And I also hope that we can teach our trainees and our medical students how to avoid these mistakes in a more formal manner, because they are making these mistakes. In this study, it's been reported that 60% of medical students have reported incidents of students posting unprofessional online content. This has included content such as making private information related to patients available, as well as not disclosing conflicts of interest, profanity, discriminatory language, as well as depicting intoxication or sexually suggestive imaging. Almost 13% of medical students reported that in the past year there have been violations of patient confidentiality in this study. In terms of what's been presented that is considered unprofessional includes things like profanity, discriminatory language, and sexually suggestive images that you want to stay away from, and you want to teach our medical students that we need to do a better job of this. So the other thing to remember is that direct messaging on social media is not private. So you need to restrict your patient communication to face-to-face and make sure you're using secure electronic communications platforms. So in fact, things like Facebook and Twitter are not secure for providing patient communication. And one of the ways you can do a better job of this is thinking about having two different types of social media home pages. So one could be your Facebook page, for example, which is dealing with personal matters for friends and family. And then things like LinkedIn are a little bit more professional. Twitter is something falls in between, and so it's something that you can use for both, but you might consider having two Twitter profiles, for example. Then, of course, protecting confidentiality is very important, and I think this is common sense stuff, but it needs to be said. Protecting the name, the demographics, as well as the time and location. So we sometimes forget that. There are guidelines out there, and there are published guidelines out there. For example, HIPAA guidelines say what you can post, and this is how they help you guide what you can post. Health tips that patients might find useful, upcoming events that patients might like, new research or findings, honors or awards, profiles or bios of your staff, ads for your services or discounts or special services that you may provide. And the thing that you do not want to post from AMA policy is identifiable patient information. They also suggest examine your social media profile. So sometimes it's good to just Google yourself. This is an opportunity for you to be in control of your own social media profile before someone else creates one for you. So that's something important to think about as well. And of course, upholding the professional boundaries when interacting with patients. I also wanted to present the Canadian policy. It's a little bit more high level, understanding technology and your audience, be transparent, respect others, and this is an important point, focus on your areas of expertise. So just summarizing some of these points, be mindful of professional self-presentation, maintain physician-patient boundaries, and protect patient confidentiality. So this becomes challenging in our field because one of the things that we notice is that it's very easy to post echo imaging from day to day. And sometimes some of this can be gratuitous. So, there may not be anything wrong with that, but you need to think about who is this helping? Is this your area of your expertise? Certainly, we're not out here to police anything, but it's something that I hope that you think about. And then could the uniqueness of that condition identify that patient? If there's only one patient with that type of valve and all of that state, could we know who that is? So that's important to think about. And is that patient okay with that? Also think about whether your institution has a strict social media policy. They might have one. They might require informed written media consent before you post an echo image, even if it's anonymous. So I don't know how they can police that, but if they're looking for a reason for you to be in their bad books, they might look at some of your social media domains. So just be careful of that. And then this is a higher end concept that we didn't talk about today, but there's a push for democratization of data. And so we are, for example, posting images, patient data, and what we're doing is we're educating, we're improving our own profile, but some of this data might belong to patients, and so there's a greater push amongst patient advocacy groups to actually have an opportunity to own some of their data. So that's a higher end concept that we can think about and discuss further. This is an interesting example. In 2007, a resident surgeon snapped a picture of a patient's tattoo. The words hot rod were on a patient's penis tattooed, and so this patient took a picture of it. Luckily, he didn't post it to the internet, but this was posted within a smaller WhatsApp type of club. And so that resident did get in trouble for that, and Mayo has since developed further guidelines, and I'll talk a little bit about those. But this story highlighted that almost 60% of medical students have students posting inappropriate information online. 13% reported incidents that involved content that violated patient privacy. And so this is an interesting gentleman. This is a cardiologist at Mayo Clinic, Dr. Faraz Tamimi. He's come up with some rules, 12 words to light your way. Don't lie, don't pry, don't cheat, can't delete, don't steal, don't reveal. And Mayo, in fact, has created this interesting online certificate. So you can take this course, Social Basics for Healthcare, something to think about. But you can also look at even YouTube videos, and there are tutorials online as well to help you navigate social media for the healthcare worker. So let's look at a tweet. I thought I didn't want to show too many examples because of the time, but I just wanted to give you one example. So here's a tweet. This is a cardiologist that's tweeted, amazing cases in the TEE lab recently. Person with history of IE, ring repair, back with MRSA. So what do you guys think about this tweet? It's pretty typical. But what would a patient think about this tweet? So what would this patient think about their tweet? To us, this is an amazing case, but probably to him, it's probably a little bit more tragic, right? So you have to be aware of, while this is amazing to us, this is going out in a public forum. How would patients perceive this attitude? Would they feel that this physician is compassionate about their situation or not? The other thing is that this video was posted online, and it was basically a video of the screen, and I don't want to show, but you can see the date, the time of the hospital, and if you keep playing the video, you can almost start seeing the patient's name. So you have to be really careful that this content has been put out on Twitter. So thinking about some of these things, these are some ways you can try to avoid mistakes and pitfalls. We're in healthcare, so one of the things I think we should be is compassionate. Think about your tweet. How would a patient perceive your tweet or your social media posting? Is it confidential? HIPAA rules? Is it collegial? Don't necessarily retweet stuff that's not well vetted, and don't forget to credit and cite. In this way, you can be selective with what your time, your distractions, you can add value, you can be respectful. Remember, your mom might be following you, your colleagues, your boss, and this is a way for you to end with a positive image that's professional and remains creative. Thank you.